Welcome back. Suzi Marsh, Meffen, licensed clinical social worker, and this is, I think, the last video in the series on spirituality, not religion. As I mentioned, there are many benefits to the brain when you have a spiritual practice. There are even benefits to the brain if you practice spiritually and you don't believe in God. But there are even more benefits when you can understand a higher power. Now, for me, God came to me in the two ways that I could recognize when I was an atheist. Number one, the unconditional love of animals. And then number two, when I turned my will, which is the third step in 12-step programs, when I turned my will over, I remember thinking when I was ready to do that step, it was December 25th, 1982, and I had an experience of wanting to drink, but I didn't want to drink. My body wanted to drink because I didn't want to drink. And but this when I saw a 6-pack of beer in my parents' refrigerator, this feeling shot through my body. So I went upstairs and read my literature, and it said, turn your life and your will over to the God of your understanding. And I thought, turn my will over to unconditional love. How could I go wrong? Well, since that time, it has really grown and matured, and I'm okay with religion, but I much prefer a personal relationship with a higher power, and I talk to God and ask him questions and wait for answers all the time. I think it's funny that today, or later on today when I'm doing this video, the Jesus from the schizophrenic client that I had is over there, and now you can see Mary Magdalene. I did not know when I was early in recovery. I loved antique spiritual stuff, so I did not know this was Mary Magdalene. Now, I was raised Catholic, and when it was time for my confirmation, which is when you choose a patron saint, my mom said, why don't you choose Mary? And I said, Mom, everybody's Mary. And my mom said, she had no idea. She said, Mary Magdalene. Now, I didn't even know anything, but I knew instantly that that was exactly right for me. Little did I know, like Mary Magdalene, I would become this wild child and immoral. And then I found out that she loved Jesus. She loved Jesus so much. So when I found that portrait, I didn't even know it was Mary Magdalene. And a Catholic friend of mine said to me, that's Mary Magdalene. So of course, I thought it was amazing. Recently, I was in a thrift store and I looked at the area where things are locked up, usually like jewelry, and this little box got my attention, and it said, the oil of Magdalena, something like that. I should go get it and show it to you. And I looked at it, and it was the same oil. It came from Israel, the same oil that Mary Magdalene put on the feet of Jesus, and that some of the apostles castigated her for using such an expensive perfume and oil. But of course, then Jesus said, that's because she knows what's going to be happening to me. And he was talking about the crucifixion. So those kinds of things are the ways that God talks to me. And that works for me. So it's very personal. So we call them not coincidences, but God incidences. And in the beginning, many times it was animals, and for some strange reason, birds. Like I think it was the first or second time I lived on my own, and it was really scary for me. So I was in my late 20s, and this dove nested in my porch. And I knew, okay, I believe in the Holy Spirit, so I knew God was sending me the nesting Holy Spirit so I could welcome and celebrate being home. And that's one of the ways I find my spiritual experiences, that I know God is nudging me, talking to me, empowering me, supporting me. And sometimes when I had a really, really dark time in my life, I had a client suicide. Now I'm not smiling about that. I'm smiling about what happened. And I remember talking to God. I was so depressed. It was a deep, deep, dark depression, worse than I'm even going to tell you. And God said to me, now you have to be like Jim, that's my husband. You have to walk in faith. And that was a spiritual experience, which I didn't realize till years later. So I did that. And I thought, Jim hasn't had these bizarre experiences like I have, but he has steady, consistent, continuous faith. And that was my spiritual experience during that dark time. So how to start a spiritual practice. So in the 70s, all the rich people were going to transcendental meditation. Now, Herbert Benson studied transcendental meditation because they would have to spend thousands of dollars back then to get their mantra. Well, guess what he discovered in his research? It wasn't the transcendental meditation. It was the fact that they had invested so much into their practice. So it wasn't the mantra. It was the money they put into it. So Herbert Benson, in the relaxation response, the book is called How to Meditate, basically says, if you choose a mantra, and you've probably seen me talk about this in other of my videos, you choose a mantra that is extremely meaningful to you. I have no idea where I got this mantra. I will to will the highest will. Sometimes I say, I will, thy will. My cat's in here doing something. I will, your will. So it depends on how anxious I am. If I'm super anxious, I say a really long affirmation. I will to will the highest will, because the intrusive negative thoughts that come when I'm anxious can't stay if my focus is totally on making this positive statement. This statement reminds me of how I went in one night from being a full-blown atheist to a total believer. So it also reminds me of how I've been clean and sober from drugs. We say clean, for 42 years. So it reminds me that I went through this really bad time and was lifted up and changed my life, changed the way I thought, just like the book I told you about, how God changes your brain. So you have to find, you have to find something, a word. Some of you that are religious may say God. Some in Eastern meditation, the guy that studied the spiritual experiences, studied the meditators. So basically, transcendental meditation, I choose, I will to will the highest will. Can you hear my cat? I don't know what he's doing. So it reminds me of going from living in hell, being a really bad person, to being completely and totally redeemed, forgiven, and loved like I always wanted to be. So mine is I will to will the highest will. Some people, Eastern meditation, Joda, say Joda is a Sanskrit chant, but something that you can relate to. You can use mine, I will, thy will. So when you start to meditate, your brain will drive you crazy. Everybody, some guru said, it takes everything I have to get my students to meditate. And then when they finally get it, it takes everything I have to get them to stop. Because once you get past that place where your brain is going on and on and on, you will reach like a Zen experience. So basically it releases, I guess, hormones and serotonin or dopamine, whatever, I don't know. I'm a lazy intellectual. I just remember the result of my research, not the details. Emotional regulation and increase a sense of command over your emotions. So choose some sort of affirmation that really suits you, soothes you, and comforts you. A word or a phrase. I like a phrase because it interrupts the chatter in my mind. Okay, thanks. Hope you start your practice soon. 5 minutes a day is not too little. And eventually work up to a half hour to 45 minutes. I don't do that. I used to. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.